Okay, so this is my final video, the one about the trends, and luckily, luckily for me, I went in late to pick my trend, and all of my fantastic classmates had actually left me the one that I wanted, so we're all good with that. I chose personalized learning, and this is a trend that both my wife and my kids and I all really believe in. And my wife actually helped institute it at Jefferson Forest High School for a little while until they made a change in principal, and then they took away some of the innovative programs, but I digress. So personalized learning for me is the key to what education is going to be moving forward. The last time we had a major overhaul of our educational processes and routines, it was in the late 1800s when the Industrial Revolution hit. So we changed the way we did education to try to create basically factory workers because we needed people to do this at this time this way. Everybody needed the same experience so that they could standardize everything for the factories. Well, factories are going away. They're not closing, but those jobs are being replaced by robots that can actually do this in this way at this time over and over and over, much better than a human could ever do. So we're going to need, as I've talked about in other classes and other videos, individuals with AI skills and those kinds of things to run those jobs. So that's a whole different concept. But if you look at the way we do education now, even in K-12, even the Bell system is based around creating a factory worker. You work from this time until this time. When the bell rings, you can stop and move on to something else. And we haven't taken into account students' needs, wants, desires, interests, all of those kinds of things, or strengths. And we need to capitalize on students' strengths while supporting their weaknesses. And if you take a one-size-fits-all approach like we've done for the last 120 years, you can't really educate fully each student. So what personalized learning does, and I know it's been implemented incorrectly in a lot of places. Let me throw this out there first. Personalized learning is not taking worksheets, moving them online, putting a laptop in front of a student and saying, here, go ahead, work at your own pace. That is not personalized learning. All right? I know for a fact that in some schools in our area, that's the way it was implemented, and it's not right. It's terrible, and the parents should be complaining about that. What personalized learning is allowing students not only just to learn at their own pace, but also demonstrate the skills that they already know and be able to move on to other skills and allow them to show how they've mastered these skills in a number of different ways. So flexible pacing is the very first thing that allows. Competency-based progressions is the next. So if a student, let's say, can take the entire exam for Algebra 1 and they can demonstrate they've mastered all of the objectives desired for Algebra 1 at the first day of class, why do we make that student sit in that class? Why can't we move them on and be progressing based on the competencies that they've already shown? All right? We also need to give students some choice in what they're learning. Not everybody needs the exact same education. My interests through K-12 were science and STEM related. I was lucky. I went to a high school in the state of Kentucky that had trimesters. I took 14 electives in biology before I went off to college. I was not required to take all of the music and arts and theaters that I'm not good at, which is fine. And there are people that would rather take those classes than the STEM-related classes, which is great too. Now, you notice I didn't say anything about writing and reading and math, because those are the three non-negotiables. But students should also have some choice in how they demonstrate those things. Not everybody needs to write a paper on the theme of love and Romeo and Juliet. The goal is to teach our students how to write, not about what content to write about. So when you start allowing students to write about things that they're interested in, read about things that they're interested in, you're going to get more student buy-in and engagement, and you're going to get those outcomes that you look for. You can still teach critical thinking in those ways, even if every student is not reading the same thing. You also, when you implement these pre-tests and those kinds of things to find out where the students are, you get some data to drive instruction on how to develop different activities for different students. And to provide some targets where students are weak in, so you can address those and not just go through everything. I'll give you an example. When I do trainings for groups, like the other day I did a Google training for our University Experience and Success group. I did not have a script when I went in. And I've told you guys on these videos, I don't write scripts. What I do is, I'm comfortable enough with the material that I go in and I start asking questions. And based on the answers from those questions is how I take the training. I don't want to waste people's time making them sit through things that they already know. And I feel like we do that every day in education. I think personalized learning allows us to kind of push some of those things out the door. And then, the last pro that I'll talk about here is the technology integration. Technology is here to stay. And if all we are doing is handing students worksheets to do in the classroom, sit there and be quiet, do your worksheet, that is not education, and it's not preparing them for the 21st century. Giving them access to the technology and making sure that they can write for websites, they can build websites, they know how to share and collaborate and do all those things, is providing them also the content that you're trying to teach in the class, but also those technology skills that they'll need when they get into a job. There are very, very few jobs out there that use zero technology. I had somebody come and fix my electrical fence the other day. Used a piece of technology to find the electrical break, and then used a tablet to send me my bill. He used technology, even though it was more of a outside manual labor kind of thing. So all of these jobs that we're preparing all students for need some technology background. And when you start working with them in kindergarten with technology, by the time they get out of high school, the basics are easy, and then all the concepts that they would need for a job are taken off the table, and they already have that baseline. Now, let's talk about a little bit about the cons, because I know there are a few. And the biggest one is resources. When you've got, say, 30 students in a class, and they're all at different levels working on different things, you've got to have time and energy to point them in the right way, to build activities that are useful for each one of those students. And that takes staffing, it takes time, it takes professional development, all of which we're not really investing in our education. To me, a classroom of 30 would be better suited with 2 teachers that are going around helping students in different ways. And I'm not sure that that's going to be viable unless our federal education system buys in and says, hey, we are going to promote this, we're going to fund it, and do all those kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done without it. I'm just saying it would be much easier with more resources. The other con is when I talked a little bit about assessment, and it changes the way we have to attack assessment. We really need to be measuring each student's progress. And that means different things for different students. One student can start here and get all the way up here. One student can start here and get to here. Or one student can start way down here and get to here. And that's huge progress, the same amount as here to here. So building out different accounting measures is going to have to be key to this, because not all students should be assessed the same way, or the benchmarks may be different for every student because they're at different levels, they have different interests, and they have different goals in mind. So that's a whole different change from standardized tests. Let's take the SOL, make sure they all get to this level, and move on. You've got to really change that. And the accountability will move more to the student and the teacher and less to the school and the standardized test. This would be a great place to use student portfolios so that there is documented proof of that progression from where the student started to where they ended up. And then the last con I'm going to talk about, and then I'll shut it down here, is equity and access, which is one of the biggest things that I've been fighting since I got to the University of Lynchburg. We in public education, well, I've got the K-12 hat on now, have to make sure that every student has access to all the things. And when they leave school, you can't really ensure that, because we have students that can go home, have 4 MacBook Pros in the house because every person in the house has their own, has high-speed internet, all of that stuff. We have other students that sneak into McDonald's and sit in the back and try to use their phone, hooking onto their Wi-Fi to do their homework. So that's something we need to keep in mind as we look at how we redo education and personalized learning, and see how we can build the bulk of this stuff to be done at school. I can tell you, I taught K-12 for 18 years. I taught biology, chemistry, physics, earth science, and algebra 1. Never once assigned homework, because I couldn't guarantee that what the students had at home, they had the necessary items to complete homework. And I know you can say a textbook and pencil and paper, but when you're doing things like math and you're sending it home and they do 20 problems and they do them all wrong, and then they come back to you, it's now harder to unteach that skill that they learned incorrectly. So I was never a big proponent of homework. So that's one of the things with equity and access. If you can really tailor your personalized learning to be done, the bulk of it in school, I think you can address a lot of those equity and access issues. So thanks for listening to me ramble. I look forward to hearing some of your all's videos. Thanks so much.